Hey folks, this is Johnny, and as promised, we are going to go through editing the pads and samples in Impact. Got a lot of questions after the last video for Impact, and I think we're going to be able to answer most of those now. And if you could, I would really appreciate it if you would like this video, subscribe to my channel, enable the notifications, and if you really want to support the channel, you have two ways to do it. You can hit the join button at the bottom of this video, or you can go to my Patreon page, which is in the description. Become a patron over there, and you get even more benefits, like videos that I can't post here and things like that. So take a walk over there, or take a mouse over there. Is that how it works? I'm not quite sure. So anyway, the last video that I did on Impact really generated a lot of questions and a lot of interest on using Impact instead of some of the big the big drum plugin names. Now, nothing is going to really beat some of the stuff that's out there. I think that Battery is kick-ass. It is really a nice plugin for, drumming and editing drums, especially if you're doing live drums, because it has some hi-hat cancellation options that Impact doesn't have. But for the most part, Impact will work for that. But as far as ease of use and really customizing your sound, Impact has some things that some of these other ones don't, as far as that goes. So we're going to go ahead and get into that. So here we are in the classroom, and as you can see, I have Impact pulled up, so we're all set to go. Now, I've got a kit that actually is part of one of the sound sets in for Studio One. So check and see if you have the collective kit if you really want to go through this one. All right, so I've got basic sounds here. Very cool. And then on the second bank, I have the sound effects. They're actually kind of low, so I can turn them up a little bit here. This one's nice. And if you've got an old style Atom, you can actually just go to Bank B, but if you have the Atom SQ, you've got the top row of pads. Now, in this particular kit, all of these sounds have their long sequences. I should say all of these sounds are actual, not full, but lengthy sequences that you can time and sync to whatever tempo you have set. I'm going to show you that a little bit later. So once we actually go back to what we have some really interesting sounds. Nothing that you can really use for rock. I like that kick. It says clap, but it sounds like a finger snap, doesn't it? Okay, you didn't need to hear that. All right, anyway, so you've got all these cool sounds. So we can actually customize those sounds by using the controls here. We're going to start down here. All right, so we have the volume. Let's see, let's find a good one. Can really dial that in. We have the panning. We have the decay, which is probably my favorite because it's a very subtle decay. So if you've got a sound with a lot of tail on it, if you look up here, you see it's got a nice tail, and it goes on for a couple of milliseconds there. So I can actually tail that down or taper that down. There you go. Now, you could use it as a way to remove reverb on a particular sample, but it's not as accurate as actually removing the reverb. Like, see, this one has a nice little tail. So you can bring this down. See, that actually worked really good. Now, there are other ways to take down the tail end of a sample. You can actually use the window option up here. The only problem is it doesn't taper. It just stops. So if you're looking for that Phil Collins gate kind of sound, There's your baby right there. So you've got a couple of ways to really manage the sound. All right, so let's see. This is the hold, and of course, if this was a longer sample, I could actually designate how long it would actually hold when I let go of the pad. Now, the hold and the decay work kind of hand in hand. If you got this all the way up, the decay doesn't work because the hold is overriding the decay, and that's very similar to the rest of the controls that have the attack, the hold, and the decay. So just be aware, if you want the decay to work really well, you're going to want to drop the hold a little bit so that you can really customize it. There you go. So you see how that works. Just like that. And the attack is exactly what you would think. It takes the initial click, or the transient, if you will, and it kind of softens it. Just like that. All right, so that's the amp. Oh, and the velocity. So with the velocity all the way up, this gives you the pad sensitivity to, if you hit the pad lightly, it's really soft, and if you hit it harder, it gets loud. If you don't want that, if you want to just touch the pad no matter what the strength, and you want to have the sound loud, you would take this all the way down. They're just barely touching the pad. Smacks right there. So you can choose in between if you really don't want the dynamics and so on and so forth. So a lot of people feel that, oh, I got to make that adjustment on my atoms, and you don't. You don't have to. You can do that right here, which is really nice because it saves a lot of time. All right, so that is the amplitude section of all of this. So this you cannot turn on and off. That is always on. All right, so now the filter section. This is actually also quite cool. As far, just had dinner. As far as being able to really shape your sounds, okay? Not as much as the pitch and the tune, but this really gives you the ability to do a little bit of shaping and almost a compression-like option. So let's actually click on it to turn it on. And we have the resolution here, or the resonance, sorry. I always say resolution. We have the resonance here, and this kind of acts like an EQ. It's not really an EQ, but it can help if you have a snare sample and it just sounds too dark. There you go, just like that. Should we do another pad too? Yeah, let's actually try the kick drum. Turn on the filter. There we go. Just like that. And all of these controls are able to be automated. I was going to say automatable. Is that a word? Automatable? Well, if it wasn't before, it is now. All right, so there we go. There's the filter. So we have the cutoff. We have the resonance. We also have the attack, the hold, and the decay. Now, the reason why I'm holding my mouse over this so that the name pops up, a lot of people don't realize that there are a lot of controls in here that all have these little pop-ups to let you know what they are. So that also goes for some of the stuff up here. Just a nice little side tip. Even when you actually have things created in your macro toolbar, it'll tell you what the actual command is. All right, anyway, continuing. So here's the decay. Hold. It doesn't really affect the sound as much as the ones down here. But depending on some of the settings that you have, let's get this back here. So here we actually have the envelope. See how that works? So for this section here, these controls are affected by these here. So not so much any of these. So if you have these kind of normalized, these really don't do much. Okay, so this section here is kind of on its own. Here's the velocity here. So if I have this set here, sorry, and I hit it light, you can see here that it's brighter. The harder I hit it, the darker it gets. Okay. So here we have soft. And I'm not going to lie to you, I have no idea what this does. No idea what that does. All right, so there you go. You have that setting. When you guys, if one of you guys figures it out, please put it in the comments area. I would love to know exactly what it affects. All right, now over here you have some different. I believe these are attack settings. Again, not entirely sure. So let's see. We got LP24 ladder. So let's see if our sound changes when I select these other. Ooh, yeah. Oh, okay, so these are different frequency settings aside from the resolution. Or resolution, the resonance. Dang it. So there you go. There's something to play around with. Now, the drive is actually quite cool. Let me use a longer sample. Let's see if the drive affects the symbols. It does. How about like the snare? Kind of adds like a little bit of distortion to it. I wonder if it would actually affect one of the other pads more. Let's try one of these sounds. Oh, I see. Oh, yeah, you can hear it now. Very cool. So that's the drive. And let's do the punch here. Now, the punch is cool. I showed this when I was actually setting up a kit in one of the other videos. This is an awesome... This is like compression. I mean, a real powerful compression. So, watch this. You got that snap. Let's see if I can put it on the kick as well. There we go. It's almost like a transient editor. Let's actually get the whole sample. Wow. It's almost got two samples within itself. It's such a cool... See what the drive does. Oh boy. That's a mean snare. Nice. Nice. Okay, so that is the filter section. I'm going to turn that off now. All right, so above the filter section is a really a heavy way to affect your samples. You have the ability to do a pitch. So this would be like the tuning peg on your guitar. Let's try this. Ready? I take that back. I got it backwards. The tune is like the tuning peg on the guitar. So if you feel the sample is almost where you want it as far as being in tune, if you got a guitar sample and it's just a little bit off, you can use the tune to fix that. Now, if you really want to change like the key, you can actually use the pitch. Sounds like an explosion. Or you can make it really annoying. Want to hear the most annoying sound in the world? Okay. Don't worry, I'm not going to do the, I forget his name, Jim Carrey from Dumb and Dumber. All right. So those are major options for tuning your sounds. So let's try the snare. Let's bring it up a little bit. Almost got to pickle a snare. And again, these don't control these. These control these. And of course, you can do the velocity. Oh, wow. Listen to that. So the velocity is going through these settings to actually give you a certain sound at a certain hit level. Here's hard hits. Here's light hits. Now this would work really good if you have this all the way down. Because then even your soft hits are loud. So there you go. All right. That takes care of this section right here. All right. So let's see what the reset does. Boing. Dive, right? So we're going to go here. We're going to hit reset. We're going to go here. We're going to hit reset. All done. All right. So now the edit samples option. I was testing this before doing this video, and it seems to only work on multi-level samples. So in other words, if I go from the collective kit to, say, my HST 70s kit, you can see I have multiple samples. Now, I can edit the samples per the sample that I select in the multi-window. Hopefully that makes sense. So when I hit edit samples, it gives me the ability to edit the samples within this single pad separately. Hopefully that makes sense. So for instance, I've got this good sample here. If I take this last one and I move this like way over, and so it's only going to trigger when I hit it hard, I can edit this sample at a higher pitch. So you can literally tune the velocity of hits as you hit the pad or an electronic drum kit. So the cool thing is I can have the same snare tuned a completely different way if I hit the pad hard. But if I hit it at a normal level, See, that's why it's important to see. That is really complete control. I mean, I think it's amazing that you can even do that. So remember, the edit sample is for the multi-level samples, and I showed you guys how to do that in the previous videos. So there you go. All right, so now all notes off. So this would be, let's say you have, let me see if this works. Let me go back to the other kit. It was the collective kit. So let's go back to the collective kit. So if I go to the bank B, so the all notes off, this is what I think it is. And honestly, I didn't test it. All right, so let's see if this works. So if I go up here, and we'll go up here. Let's go up here. So if I go up here, I have it on loop, but I have to hold the pad down. Where'd it go? So let's see if I put it on normal, loop, and toggle. Okay, that's what I thought. This is like an all notes off. Let's say you have a stuck MIDI note. You can actually hit this button to shut all the notes off. So if I hit the pad, and it's going, I'm not touching anything, but I don't want to hear it, I can just hit the all notes off. So this would be great for pads that have samples on it like this. This are progressions. Or if you have a long tail on a particular snare and you just want to shut that off and it just goes on too long or whatever, you can actually hit the all notes off. So it's just like a MIDI all notes off. It's just going to take whatever sound is playing in Impact, it's going to shut it off. All right. So now, I'm not sure. I don't think I want to start up here just yet. I want to get across these because some of these are actually quite cool. All right, so here is. There we go. Ooh, that one actually. That one's on one shot. We want to keep it on loop. Okay. I'll go back to that later. All right. There is a cool feature up here. I'm going to start on the right. And I can actually add a sample to a particular pad. I can just add it outright and it'll load it up and go to my library, or I can drag it in from the browser. The reverse. Ready? So cool. And of course you have normalize. And that just brings up the volume. I never do that with anything. If I want to bring it up, I'll bring it up down here or whatever. But you do have the option if you want to use it. This actually tells you what sound you're playing. This gives you the ability to load the next sample available. I'm not going to do that here, but if you have a huge library, whatever the location of the library is, this is going to let you page through those sounds. All right, so now we have a little bit of a different kind of an edit for the beginning and the end. You have these. You can start these anywhere. And you can just make it really short. And since I have it on loop over here, it's going to loop that section. But you have this here. You have start. If I go really up, see, I can't drag the mouse. I have to use the wheel. Let's do the end. Oh, you know what? I take that back. Stupid me. I just learned something. It looks like these are the readings for the start and end markers. Doy. So there you go. Perfect. Hey, you got to learn sometime. I actually thought that these... Oh, I know what I was thinking of. I was thinking of the offsets over here, and we'll get to that. Okay, that's I'm going to give myself a reprieve on that. I'm going to say, oh, that's what I was thinking. So these are the measurements for the start and end markers here in the sample itself. I feel a little bit smarter. Just a little. All right, so there you go. Now, getting into this section, the offsets. The offsets do that for an instant. I thought what these did. So you have the start offset. Yeah, that's my excuse, and I'm sticking with it. So you have the start offset. So if you can see, let me go back to here, and let me go to the clap pad. Now you can see where it starts. It starts at the beginning. Now I could either move this, or I could have this start in a different place. See? I don't know why, because see, it pretty much does the same things as these. Excuse me. So it just the secondary control? I'm not sure. Not sure, but there you go. You have the start and end offsets as well as the marker beginning and end. And remember? I feel silly now. All right, so let's keep going. So now, going up, let's start at the top here. So here we have, or let's go to the top, I should say. We have the pad focus. Now, on the atoms, you can see that the sample follows the pad I hit. But if I use my third-party controller, you can see that it doesn't. I'm using an MPK Mini. I don't know why the atom follows, but the third-party controller doesn't. However, if you hit pad focus, it follows. So I think this is just an option for third-party controllers if you are not actually focusing. Now, you might not want it to follow. You can't turn it off for the atom. So if you're doing a constant edit and you're hitting the pads, you're going to be changing your actual your in-focus pad. So with a third-party controller, it seems to work better if you turn the pad focus off. That's just how it is. All right, so that's pad focus. So now going back to my Atom SQ, you can see that I have the color options here for each of the pads. This is actually really important, especially if you're using an Atom and you're using Impact, because the colors of the pads, when you're actually doing live drumming, it makes a big difference knowing the colors of your pads. So there you go. You can select the color. So now here is a part that confuses a lot of people, and it is the actual note assignment, the main trigger note. The second one is the secondary trigger, second. So, but the thing is the secondary one is for people, like for left-handed people. Like I know that being right-handed, I use my left hand more when I'm actually doing drums. For people that would rather have the drum kit up high on the keyboard, let's say you have an 88 key piano and you really want the drums up here, but you don't want to mess up the settings here, you can actually choose those here with this. So it's important to know that you can actually spread your drum kit in two sections of an 88 key keyboard. You can do it with kits that only have a couple of banks. You can put some of the banks on a higher end of the keyboard. So you could literally duplicate the kit on A and B to G and H and put them on any notes that you want. And I think it's as simple as highlighting. Let's see here. Let me put it on pad focus. Okay, you ready? So I'm going to go up the keyboard, and I'm going to go up the keyboard to a bank that I don't have anything assigned. So now, if I want hold on a second here. If I want the snare. Oh, this is going to be hard. Got to do this. Okay, so if I want the snare to trigger on a pad up here, you can see, let's say I want the snare to trigger on C5 also. So C5 is way up the keyboard. It's right there on my keyboard. So all I have to do is go back to the A pad. Okay, hold on. I got to see which is C5. Okay, it's that one. It's the middle C. So I'm going to go to A, and I'm going to click here to where it turns blue and hit C5. There. So now I have a snare here and here. So I'm hitting the D sharp. Let's see. Hold on. I'm hitting the D1. Now I'm hitting the C5. Oops. Did I reset it? Okay, hold on. I'm going to do this. So let's go back to this. Oh, did it not hold? Oh, I still had it highlighted. All right. Click, hit, and get the mouse out of there. Still didn't work. What am I doing? See, it's not showing up there. Do I have to hit enter? So I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to hit C5. Okay, so now, or I suppose I could just do this. I thought you could just highlight it and hit C5. I'm going to figure this out. And no, I'm not editing this out because I know everybody's going to experience this. All right. There. So now it says A2. Oh, that's because I rolled my mouse. So I thought I could highlight it and hit C5. No. Thought I could do that. C5, enter. Nope, still is there. So I guess what I have to do is, let's see, I'm rolling my mouse to C5. And of course now it works on C5 and it works on A or D1. D1. Boy, it keeps changing. You guys notice that? So I'm going to go back up. I'm going to go to C5. So let's see, C5 and out. C5, D1. Okay. I guess you have to click away. I didn't hit enter. I probably could have clicked enter. So let me go back to C5 and hit enter. Oh, I see. Okay. That's what you got to do. You've got to click enter. Makes sense. Okay, now I thought that you could just highlight and have it do it like a MIDI learn. Oh, you know why? I just realized why. I just realized why. Because I had the pad focus on. I think it's because I had the pad focus on. So if I roll this back, let's see if that's right. Let's see if that's right. So if I highlight this and I hit C5 and then hit enter, that's why. That's why. Because with the pad focus on, the third-party controller was chasing the note to C5 and not entering it. Okay, did you catch that? So it is a MIDI learn. If I go back down, make sure pad focus is off if you want to do MIDI learn to assign a pad to a secondary sample. So if I go down here and I click away, and that's what it is there, and I highlight this and I click on the new key, C5, I have to hit enter. And there it is. Now, it doesn't show up here all the time. This, I don't know why. But it works. I'm hitting C5 and I'm hitting D1. Perfect. Okay. I spent way too much time on that. Thank you guys for your patience. So make sure pad focus is off in order to use the MIDI learn option here for assigning pads to new keys. Or to new pads. Man. All right. So next we have these options here. So we've got one shot, loop, normal, and toggle. So if we go to the second bay. Okay, let's okay, so let's use this. So if we choose one shot, I'm not holding the pad down. If I choose normal, I have to hold the pad down. If I choose loop, it will cycle through while I hold the pad down. I'm holding the pad down. So now if I turn loop off, it should just go to the end and stop. And it does. So loop is for holding the pad down. One shot is for if you don't want to hold the pad down. Hopefully that makes sense. Normal is just holding the pad down, and it stops as soon as you lift up. There you go, just like that. So let's see, so toggle. So what toggle gives you the ability to do is to tap, if you have it on loop, if you tap the pad a second time, it'll stop the loop. There you go. I'm tapping the pad here, and I'm tapping the pad here. Wish I had a camera on the item. So that is the first row of this section here. Okay, so now layer mode. Layer mode. Let's go ahead to another kit. Let's go to my HST 70 share drum kit. Here we go. So the layer mode is, we have it velocity. I can choose round robin. What round robin is going to do is it's going to when you hold, like this would be like for oh geez, how would I explain this? It's going to cycle through the samples. Random, when you hit the pad, it's going to cycle through them randomly. So round robin will cycle through them in order. Random will cycle through them, random will cycle through them randomly. Which can be cool, I suppose. So it kind of gives you, like if you're doing a roll on a pad, let's actually keep it on random. It keeps that machine gun sound, especially if you have multiple samples. So this isn't going to be an option on a single sample pad. It actually goes blank. So the other one is stack. It's actually playing all of the samples at once. It's actually playing all 4 of them, if I have it on stack. So that is the layer mode. So now, this one gets a lot of people. The choke options. So when you have it in off, it doesn't matter how many times you hit a particular pad. Let's take stack off. Go back to velocity. So remember, the velocity plays them in order of velocity. So a soft hit will play the first sample, a little harder hit will play 2, then 3, then 4, the harder you hit it. Hopefully that makes sense. So now the choke option, there is a lot of options here. I don't know why there are so many, but there they are, just like this. So now the cool part about the choke section is that you can have multiple pads that choke off other pads at different rates or at different times, depending on the group you have them in. So if you were watching on the last couple of videos that I did, the hi-hats are really the most important. So for the hi-hats, normally, now with this sample set, I don't have that like that, so let's go to a different drum kit. Let's go to the HST Pop Kit. There we go. You can see that the closed and the open, if I put it on pad focus, they're all set to group 1, along with the foot. So the pads that you want to cut off the next pad hit need to be set to the same choke group. This can be good for snares if you want particular snares to cut off when other snare sounds hit. That would take some deep programming, but nothing too difficult. So like for hi-hats, hi-hat is the best example because you want the closed or the foot to actually cut off the open. So you have... Okay, so now, if you have it on self, that's kind of bad because, like, for the open hi-hat, I don't know how much you can hear it. Here's the open hi-hat. So for the open hi-hat, if you have it on self, it's going to cut itself off the next time you hit the pad. If you have it off, you'll hear them, and each time you hit will tail off. So it sounds a little bit more natural. And this is the only problem with Impact. Unfortunately, having it assigned to a choke group also cuts itself off. And this goes back to what I was talking about battery. That has a secondary option that even if you have it assigned to a choke group, it won't cut itself off, and you can set that at a certain level. So it's even more dynamic and more realistic when using AV drum kit and an electronic hi-hat. Hopefully that makes sense. But for the most part, I've used Impact. When I do drumming, I just have to know that if I don't want the open hi-hat to cut itself off, I either have to set it to off or I have to be creative with my stick playing. All right, so the last 2 things that we're going to look at here, and I know this video's gone long. I appreciate your patience. The Quantize option. This is really for pads that have sequences. So now, if your samples have tempo data, with pretty much anything created in Studio One will have tempo data. So let's find... Okay, so here's a rhythm. So you can see that with this pad here, it has the options for quantize and follow tempo. So, like I showed you before, I can go ahead and set this with the tempo if I wanted to follow the beats in the song or if I wanted to follow the bars. The other thing that I can do is I can have it follow the tempo. So, if you watch closely, let me turn this up. Since I have the tempo on the follow tempo, if I slow the tempo of my song down, it will actually follow the tempo. So the great thing about that is if you have a sample that has a rhythm or a sequence in it, the tempo of that sample will follow the tempo of your song, even through tempo changes. So you can actually put a couple of seconds sample sequence into a pad, make sure it has tempo data, and you can actually change the tempo when that pad is hit to lock with the tempo of your song, even if you have tempo changes in it. All right, so there's going to be another video at some point going through what tempo data is. But usually if you record a sequence in Studio One and you mix it down, you will have the option to choose whether you want it to mix down with or without tempo data. If I go ahead and I hit mix down, let me actually get a loop zone in here, and let me go to, I'm probably, opening a can of worms here. If I go to song and I go export mix down, let's see, between loop, resolution, let's see, is there a tempo data? See, close after import, right? Right, tempo to audio file. You can see that I always have that checked, and I think that is checked by default because I've never changed that. So if you want to create a sample at a certain tempo to use in Impact, you would actually go ahead and export that sample with the tempo data written, and then when you import it into Impact, make sure that the follow tempo is on, because the minute you strike that pad, it will follow any tempo that your song is moving to. If it has tempo changes, it will follow. Okay. What do you guys think? I know that went long, and I'm going to deliberately leave some of the stumbles that I had. I just had one major one, and that was with the start and end thing. I'm going to leave stuff like that in so that you guys can see how to work out of the problem. A lot of people say, oh, that's so unprofessional. It makes it look like you don't know what you're doing. Do you know how hard it is to remember all this stuff for most of us? It really is. It can be difficult. So I'm not making an excuse as much as I think it's so important that you guys see how to work yourselves out of some of these issues. So if you made it to this part of the video, thank you very, very much. And I didn't get any interruptions. I didn't get any phone calls or anything. So I'm really anxious to see what your opinions are, what you thought of this video. Did I go too long? Did I not show something? Did I miss something here? I think I pretty much addressed everything that I could think of. The stuff at the top of the plugin, like the external select, I'm going to save for independent videos. There is a way to trigger trigger impact. Oh gosh, I am going to do a video on how to trigger impact without arming the track. Now that can get a little bit hectic, but I'll show you guys how to do that. I'm going to do a separate video on that. So please leave your comments below. Let me make sure I can find my outro here. So leave your comments below, and I'm interested to see what you guys thought of this. And I'm anxious to see if you guys have any opinions, or if you find something that I did here that isn't working for you, we can set up a time to either hook up on Facebook or Zoom or something like that, and we can run through it, or I can do an updated video if you find something I missed. All right. This video went way long, so thank you so much for sticking around, and I'll see you all in the next video.